Hey guys, so in this example we're going to be graphing sine and cosine with transformations. This is going to be our first example. I hope you've gone through the practices. We've explained all the different types of transformations you can have, and this one is kind of an example of putting everything together. So the first thing I would do here is I would write, well, what's our basic formula of sine? We have y equals, we have a sine, then we've got bx minus c plus d. Then all of the important stuff we need to know. A is amplitude. Shows how high the graph should go. B is the period, and that equals 2 pi over the absolute value of B. Be sure to know its absolute value. Then we have this C here. We can use that for a phase shift, because the phase shift is C divided by B. And then we've got this final D, which whenever you have a function and you just tack on something at the end, that's just going to move it up and down. So if we have like a 1 there, it's just going to move the whole graph up 1. So now let's see what we're working with. First thing, before I would start graphing this, I would make sure I have all of these things figured out. Okay, so let's start with the A. Amplitude is 3. Let's write that out. Amplitude, as you know, makes the graph go up and down by 3. Next, let's get the period. Period is going to be 2 pi over b. 2 pi over, well, b is whatever coefficient is in front of x. That's a 2. 2 pi divided by 2 equals just pi. And then we've got finally our phase shift. Our phase shift is always c over b. So our c, remember that it's not going to be negative pi, it's just pi because the formula calls for minus c. So it's going to be pi over, and then our b value, which we already figured out was 2. So that's our phase shift. And then we are not moving up and down, so no up down. Now we've got everything we need to know to be able to graph this function. So first thing I would do, see that my amplitude is 3. I haven't moved up and down, so I could draw this in right here. We're going to be going all the way up to 3. We're going to be going all the way down to negative 3. And now I would think, well, how far am I going to have to draw out? We've got a period of pi. We phase shift to the right, pi over 2. So how about we go out to 3 pi over 2. And we'll just go left the same amount, so negative 3 pi over 2. And for this one, we've got a length of pi. So that means that we need to divide the period by 4, and those will give us all the important points. So we need to have a marker every pi over 4 units. So let's start pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, not 3 pi over 2. Oh, dang it. It should be 3 pi over 4. So 3 pi over 4 there. And then we get pi. Then we get 5 pi over 4. Then we're left with 3 pi over 2. Same thing this way. Negative pi over 4. Negative pi over 2. Negative 3 pi over 4. Negative pi. Negative 5 pi over 4. Sorry if you can't read those, I wrote them small, but it's just counting by pi over 4s because our period is pi, and the period divided by 4 is all your critical points. You can think about it like 2 pi divided by 4 equals just pi over 2, and that's what we always draw our critical points standardly, in the standard way. Standardly, I just invented a word. Alright, so we have 3 sine, and then 2x minus pi. We know the amplitude is 3. We know the period is pi. We know the phase shift is pi over 2 to the right. So what I'm going to start is I know phase shifted pi over 2 to the right. So I know in the center of the graph, we're going to start at pi over 2. And the amplitude is 3, but we didn't move up and down, so we're still going to be at that 0. Okay, and then the period is pi, so that means every pi over 4 is my next critical point. And I know sine, this one's not negative or anything, so we're going to start by going up. So at 3 pi over 4, we're going to be right there. Then it's going to go back down. And it's going to go negative all the way to negative 3. Then back up to 3 pi over 2. Then we can connect the dots, squiggly and wavy. Draw our arrows. It's going to do the same thing here. It's going to go down, back up, and down again. Then that's another period. And we can just draw an arrow because it's just going to repeat again and again. So I hope that made sense. We've kept all these in mind. You can check right here. Amplitude is at 3. Well, we went all the way up to 3. We went all the way down to negative 6. That's check. So we covered that. Period is at pi. Well, here's the start of 1, and there's the end of it. That looks right. Check. Period was pi. Phase shift. Do we move to the right pi over 2? Looks like we did, because now we're starting at pi over 2. We're going up. It looks all right. And we didn't move up and down. We're all good. I feel like you should try to do it this way. Just write down everything you can. Please let me know if you have questions. Thanks for